All right, in today's Beyond Math lesson, we're going to talk about how to create curves using lines. And really, this is all about using patterns to create designs that turn out to be pretty cool. So here I have an example of kind of a basic design that I'll show you how to create. And then you are going to take the basic ideas from this design and create your own designs, your own unique designs. So you will need some paper. If you have graph paper, great. But if not, I will show you how to do the same thing without graph paper. You're going to need some pens or pencils. Colored pens are really fun. Pencils might be nice for drafting out some things or making some notes about your patterns that you're going to do. And then you definitely will need some sort of straight edge. So a ruler, of course, is great, but if you have any other edge that's straight, like the edge of a folder, something heavier piece of paper, that will work as well. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to start off with this piece of graph paper, and I drew a kind of intersecting lines, right? They intersect at 90 degrees, and this very much resembles, in fact, you could say that it is a coordinate system, right? And we're going to actually put some numbers on there. So we've seen X and Y axes with numbers along them, and we call that a coordinate system, and we've used it to graph numbers and graph points and different functions and lines. And here we're going to use that as our basis for our pattern. So I'm going to first just draw some dots. I'm going to do every other line on my graph paper just so it's bigger and you can see it. You, of course, could do every space and then make the pattern more intricate. I'm going to number these dots 1 through 7 is how much space I have. And I'm going to go up this vertical axis as well. So you can see this is very much like a coordinate system, and it will help us create a design because the numbers will allow us to come up with a pattern that we're going to follow. So here's the pattern I'm going to use for this design that I showed you earlier. I'm going to connect numbers that add up to 8. And so 7 is my biggest number and 1 is my smallest number. I'm going to connect those numbers and they add up to 8. And then I'm going to find all the other combinations that add up to 8. So 6 and 2 add up to 8. 5 and 3 add up to 8. 4 and 4. 3 and 5. 2 and 6. And that brings us back to 1 and 7. So there you go. We've connected the numbers that add up to 8, and it creates this design. And even though we're doing just straight lines, it starts to create this curved effect. And the grid, the little diamonds there, kind of make it, almost give it this three-dimensional effect as well. And you could play with coloring in some of those like diamond shapes and shading them in, and it will really bring out that three-dimensional effect as well. So I'm going to continue, and you saw in the other one that I did all 4 quadrants. I'll just do one more. So you'll see that you want to number down this axis as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Of course, in an actual coordinate plane, those would be negative numbers. But we're going to just do 1 through 7, kind of the absolute value to show us our distance from that center point. And I'm going to connect again 7 and 1, 6 and 2, 5 and 3, 4 and 4, 3 and 5, 2 and 6, and 1 and 7. And you can really see that pattern start to reveal itself as well. So that's kind of the basic idea. We're connecting dots in a specific pattern. I use the numbers as a guide, but you might also notice that this first line went from the furthest dot to the dot that was nearest to the center. And then I went 1 space down and 1 space over for the next line. Then 1 space down and 1 space over for the next line. So you might think about your pattern spatially as well, rather than just following the numbers. The numbers, I think, really help, though. Okay, so if you don't have graph paper, that is totally okay. Let me show you what you can do. There's a couple options. Using a blank piece of paper, all I did here was actually fold the paper in half the short way, and then folded it in half the long way. And guess what? That creates those 2 axes. And then I used my ruler to measure out every ½ inch. You could do centimeters, ½ inches, whatever it is you want to do. And I put little dots there. And it's kind of fun to do these designs actually on blank paper because that grid of the graph paper, is in the background when you're using graph paper. But if you do it on blank paper, then that design can really show up. Okay, so then the same thing. I numbered them. Oh, this one I got through to 8. So you could do 8 and 1. So you could do numbers that add up to 9. And then if you don't even have a ruler to measure out the space between the dots, you could even do this. You could take your blank paper and you could fold it in half. And oh, here I have some dots over on this side. So you can fold it in half, and then you can fold it in half again, and then you can fold it in half again, and then you can fold it in half again. And you might do one half side at a time because it'll get really thick. And then you could do the other way. And you can kind of see, hopefully, in the video, that you get this grid of folds. And even though my grids are not square, I'll outline one for you. Even though the grid is made up of rectangles instead of squares, you can still follow the same pattern, and it actually just makes things a little bit different. You can kind of create some cool effects when you're using a rectangular grid instead of a square grid. So try that out if you don't have a ruler, or try it out anyways, because it can be show up a different pattern. All right, so again, this is that basic idea. We draw some lines. They can be at a 90-degree angle. They can be at other angles. There can be 5 lines, 4 lines. There can be a square, even inside a circle you could do. But here's some other examples of what you can do. And then the basic idea is to start connecting points along those lines to start to see these patterns. Here's a page I was experimenting with. I initially did my axis, and then I decided to draw a square on the outside. And so I did these lines here inside this corner, but then I did the opposite corner, and this time I used every single little dot or line on my graph paper, so it becomes a little bit more intricate, and that curve actually starts to smooth out even more so than it does here. And this one I decided to go all the way around, or I got 3 sides anyways, just to see what that looks like. You could do all kinds of things with this kind of shape where you have the axis inside and then the box around it as well. Another option would be to create a big rectangle. So here I created a big rectangle on my graph paper, and I numbered them so that I could keep track of the points. And then I just started connecting different points in different patterns. And mostly I did that, spacing of 1, but you could do different things. You could move down 1 on this side, but move over 2 on this side and see what kind of pattern that creates. Use different colors to kind of show those, which is kind of fun. Here's another one that I think is really interesting as well. And this one I created a square, and I numbered the points 0 to 28. And I did that all the way around in the same direction, right? So I went 0 to 28, 0 to 28, 0 to 28, 0 to 28. And I started up at this corner, and I decided, I asked myself, I wonder what it would look like if I started at 0 and then counted by 2s. So I started here at 0, and then I connected the line to the point 2 on this side of the square. And then from 2, I connected it to the point 4 on this side of the square. And then from 4 to 6, 6 to 8, 8 to 10, 10 to 12, 12 to 14, and so on and so on. And it eventually brought me around up to this point, this corner, 0. I went from 26 back to what would be 28 on this side, but 0 on this side. So then I started over. I thought, okay, well, I'm kind of back at 0, at a different point, 0, but here's a 0. So I'm going to keep going, 0 to 2, 2 to 4, etc., etc. So you could create a square like this, or even a circle, and start connecting dots based on some kind of number pattern, like counting by 2s. Try counting by 3s. That will come up with a totally different design. Any other number that you could think of to create some kind of pattern. But that's the idea. Follow a pattern when you're connecting the lines and see what kind of designs come up. Definitely check out the next video after your instructions about your assignment. It has some other ideas of different shapes that you can do this in. And then the other video that's down there is about how this kind of math work, it really is really math, can be used in really higher level math to think about different patterns that show up in nature. It's really cool. Check it out.